This is the Moonlight Graham Show, a freewheeling conversation with the role players, the underdogs, and guys with flat-out great stories in sports.
Hello and welcome to the Moonlight Graham Show, and our Moonlighter for today is one of my all-time favorite Iowa State basketball players. His name is Jacy Holloway. And Jacy Holloway, he came to Iowa State after leading his high school basketball team to four consecutive state championships. So this guy was a winner. He came into the Iowa State program during Johnny Orr's last season in the 93-94 season. That would have been Hoiberg, Lauren Meyer, those guys' junior year. And that year they went 14-13. The very next year, of course, Tim Floyd comes in during Hoiberg Meyer's senior season. It was Jacy Holloway's second season. They go 23-11 that year, losing to North Carolina. North Carolina had Rasheed Wallace, Jerry Stackhouse on that team in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Holloway's junior year would have been Floyd's second year. This is the year that Dedrick Willoughby, Kelvin Cato, Sean Bankhead, Kenny Pratt, that crew comes into Iowa State. They go 24-9, lose to Utah with Andre Miller and Keith Van Horn in the second round of the NCAA tournament. But if you remember that season, it was the very last season of the Big Eight, and Iowa State won the very last Big Eight tournament championship, and Jacy Holloway hit the shot with 40 seconds left, three-pointer, to give Iowa State the lead for good against Roy Williams and Kansas down at Kemper Arena. Holloway's senior season, the Cyclones once again have a great year, go 22-9. They made the Sweet 16 where they beat Cincinnati in the round of 32 to go to the Sweet 16 before they lost in overtime to UCLA on a heartbreaking shot by Cameron Dollar. So we brought Jacy Holloway into the pod. And the reason why I loved Holloway's game so much is because he was a true point guard in the traditional sense. He was a distributor, he was a defender, he was a competitor, he was a leader, even though he's one of the smallest guys on the court almost at all time. He was barely over 6 foot tall. He always looked like he, kind of had that John Stockton look to him, like he was 15 years old, but man, he was a ferocious competitor. He started almost 100 games in his Iowa State career. Obviously, every year they were successful while he was there, and he was the guy that always tried to get the ball in the hands of the best players in the best spots to score. And so he was never a big scorer, but he was a huge part of those really great Iowa State teams. During his 4 years there, his freshman year, he averaged 2.2 points a game. Sophomore year, averaged 1.8 points a game. Junior year, averaged 4.6 points a game. Senior year, averaged 5.5 points a game. But he always had good assist numbers, 3.4, 4.9, 4.5, 5.9 assists per game, and never turned the ball over. So this was a guy that if you were a white guy like me that loved the game of basketball, that played point guard, I would look at Jacy Holloway when I was in sixth grade and think, man, maybe there's hope for me to play at the Division I level someday. Granted, I was never as good as a guy like Holloway, but that was my dream as a sixth grader. And so he's been one of those guys that I've wanted to have on the pod for a long time, not only to talk about those awesome days of Iowa State basketball, but also to hear about his mentality on the court, how he viewed the game as a small point guard that was looking to dish the rock, that was looking to defend and disrupt the other team, and also to hear about, Johnny Orr, Fred Hoiberg, Tim Floyd. There was a big transition in Iowa State basketball when Jacy Holloway came to play at Iowa State because Johnny Orr, that was the end of an era. He was there for a long time. Floyd comes in, and it was a totally different mentality, totally different philosophy on the game when Tim Floyd came in, and you had a lot of those upperclassmen, Fred Hoiberg, Lauren Meyer, Hurl Beachum, Julius Mikulik, that had been in the Orr system for 3 years. And even though Floyd had success right away, there was a little bit of friction on that team, and I wanted to talk to Holloway about this. So this was a really fun basketball episode to do, especially with Iowa State's undefeated right now, Iowa's undefeated right now. I feel like basketball is officially back. We're getting to the point of the football season where I know Hawk fans are still really excited about it because of that Big Ten championship game coming up, but it feels like basketball season to me, and it's fun to talk basketball with a great hooper like Jacy Holloway, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. So without further ado, here it is, this week's episode with Moonlighter Jacy Holloway. Jacy, thank you for coming on the Moonlight Graham Show.
Thanks for having me.
I, of course, was a big fan of yours growing up because I am a short white point guard like yourself. So you were kind of a hero of mine as you played for Iowa State. But for those that didn't get a chance to see you play, how would you describe yourself as a player?
Probably kind of how you described it a little bit, I guess, is definitely wasn't the biggest guy out there at any point in my career, except for maybe in high school at times. But definitely, somebody that tried to get our best players' shots in the best possible position, and then just be everything I could defensively to help the team win.
Yeah, I remember you a lot as a distributor. And, like you said, you wanted to get the ball to the best player, whether it was Fred Hoiberg or Lauren Meyer or Dedrick Willoughby, Cato, get them the ball in a position where they can score. And it seems like that job doesn't exist in the same way anymore. Like that point guard role doesn't exist, at least at the college and pro level, as it does today. What do you see of that role of the point guard today?
Well, I agree with you. And I think a little bit is how the game has evolved into a, more analytical threes and layups. It's hard for me to coach that way, honestly, because I still have the old school mentality a little bit, but I definitely see that in the college ranks as far as what you're talking about. Point guards are expected to score just as much as everybody else on the floor, and it's not always going to happen where your point guard is making the pass to the shooter when you have everybody creating.
Yeah. And back in your day, the assist to turnover ratio was kind of your stat. And you were really well known for taking care of the ball, being the distributor, having good assist to turnover rankings. But then all of a sudden, Monte Morris comes along and just blows your records out of the water as it relates to assist to turnover. Did that hurt a little bit?
Oh, no. That's something that you should expect to happen at some point. Definitely was, on the other side of it, I got mentioned quite a bit whenever he was doing his thing. And also Deontay Garrett, another one in between Monte and I also that, he's one that played all 4 years. I think he played for different coaches as well, and had some success also with the assist to turnover ratio.
How'd you end up at Iowa State?
Well, this would take your whole time up here if I told you the long part of the story. Basically, I was recruited by a lot of junior colleges in Kansas. Hutchinson Junior College was 20 minutes from my house. They were a national powerhouse. That's where the national tournament is. They were recruiting me, and they had a guy by the name of John Onchez, and he was getting recruited by Oklahoma and by Iowa State. Well, when they came in to see him at Hutch, they saw my name on the top of Hutch's list. And so then they started recruiting me from there. And then, and then there's some things that Jack Hartman at K-State, old coach at K-State, watched me play in high school because we played in Bramlage Coliseum all 4 years when we won state. And it was always the same weekend as the Big 8 tournament in Kansas City. And so he'd watch me, and then he'd go up and he was friends with Norm Stewart and Johnny Orr and all those old coaches. And I guess he had mentioned my name to Coach Orr a few times.
What was your impression of Iowa State basketball coming from Kansas and not being a homegrown Iowa guy?
Well, I watched it because I was a Big 8 fan. I grew up an OU fan, actually, which is even weirder since I went away from K-State and KU. But most of my family is from Oklahoma, so that's why I was an OU fan. And I liked the way they played. and it was similar to the way Iowa State played. Up tempo, high pace, a lot of scoring. I liked that kind of basketball, and then just being a Big 8 fan, I knew pretty much all the players from every Big 8 school.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was a fun conference to follow back in the day because, there's only 8 teams in it. So you got to know the guys all real well. I can still, remember a lot of those old rosters from the Oklahoma State, Missouri back in the day. I just hated Missouri. Like Jason Sutherland was probably my all-time least favorite player, but you probably did you guard Jason Sutherland?
Oh yeah. So that was kind of the battle between him and I. And he was a guy that averaged 15, 16 a game. And I think we played him 3 times that year because we played him in the tournament. And I think he maybe had 9 total points in 3 games.
God, he was cocky though.
Yeah. Well, he was athletic too. Ooh. 7-foot high jumper, I think, in high school.
Wow.
So yeah, he was a stud.
You come to Iowa State. It's Johnny Orr's last season. Did you know that it was his last season while you were there?
Not right away. And I don't know if we were sure even towards the end, but there was a lot of signs. Definitely looking back, there was a lot of signs that we should have probably picked up on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned kind of what you knew about Iowa State beforehand was fast pace, score a lot of points. That was the Johnny Orr style. Then Tim Floyd comes in, and it was a little bit different style where he's more focused on the defensive end of the floor, where Johnny Orr was always an offensive. Let's outscore the other side of it. But being that the team was very senior laden, you were a sophomore, Floyd's first year, but you had guys like, Mikalik, Meyer, Hoiberg, Hurl Beacham. It was a very experienced team. What was that transition like when you have an experienced team, but you have a new coach that wants to change up the style of a team that's been playing together for 3 years already?
We had some knockdown, drag out practices where those seniors that you were talking about were so used to a system and the changes system. Mikalik probably had it the hardest just because Coach Floyd didn't really understand, or not understand, but didn't really believe in the stretch 4 concept.
Yeah, Mikalik was a bomber. He was a bomber up until Floyd came around.
Yeah. Well, and I think towards the end of the year, he was still able to get out there and shoot it from 3. He hit a really big 3 late in our game against Florida in the first round of the tournament. And definitely he probably had the hardest shift for sure.
What was your role like? You're a sophomore on that team. You're seeing all this friction, maybe. I don't know, all this. Maybe I'm over-exaggerating there a little bit. But you're seeing friction amongst the upperclassmen and the coach. How do you handle that from your vantage point where you're, starting, but you're coming in, you're not starting all the time. You're not really a leader on the team yet. How did you play that out?
Well, it did happen a little bit in the summer and the fall. With the transition, the transition probably wasn't as tough for me because my high school coach, we preached defense and we spent over half our practice on defense. So Coach Floyd coming in, preaching defense wasn't a huge adjustment for me. But probably just in the fall of just getting all those guys to compete against each other. And I had a lot of success winning pickup games and gaining respect that way that fall. So kind of it's going to sound weird, but kind of like small dogs, they have a little bit more bite and a little more bark to them, and Lauren Meyer will tell you, Mikalik will tell you. I had no problems as a sophomore telling those guys what they need to be doing. I looking back, I probably shouldn't have. They could have crushed me, but I didn't have much fear of talking to those guys.
You almost have to, right? Because if those guys like that see that you're going to back down, then it just never stops. So you gotta have a backbone about you, or else you got no place on the court.
Yeah, definitely. And that Fred, Hurl Beecham, gaining their respect went a long way also as far as just the rest of the team understanding that, I was kind of in charge. I'm the point guard out there, so I'm kind of in charge out there. So.
Well, speaking of transitions, all of those guys that we've been talking about, they all graduate and they move along. And then your junior year, all of a sudden, you're one of the main holdovers, right? You're really the leader on this team that is seeing a complete changeover. All of a sudden, Hoiberg, Meyer, Beecham, Mikalik, those guys are all gone. And in comes, the non-homegrown guys. So you have Dedrick Willoughby, Kelvin Cato, Kenny Pratt, Sean Bankhead. And all of a sudden we got new uniforms, we got new players. Floyd's in his second year. What was your role on getting all of those guys, most of which were transfers, integrated into, hey, this is the Big Eight, this is high-level basketball, and we're not going to take a step back this year, even though we've had a lot of talent walk out the door?
Well, it definitely came with us just getting along too. Something has to be said for that as far as just right off the bat, we kind of came together like a bunch of brothers, and I use that term, because that's what we talked about a lot is we were friends on the floor, off the floor, but we also knew that our friendship wouldn't keep us from competing against each other. I mean, we came at each other every single day in every drill and every workout, every off-season thing. Like it was a battle, and you had to come with it every day, or they were going to tell you about it as well. So it was, my job was just to be somebody that had been through it, be somebody that had been through it with Coach Floyd. That was something that some of those guys didn't realize. Their junior college coaches or their high school coaches couldn't touch probably some of the chewings that we got from Coach Floyd and his staff.
How intense was Floyd in practice?
Oh, it was like I said, you had to be ready to go. Like you didn't have time off. You never know if it's your day. So there was one thing that he did, and he told us that it was going to happen. And he said, I'm going to pick one of you, and it's going to be your day where you can't do anything right. And even if you think you're doing it right, we're going to tell you you're doing it wrong, just to challenge you, just to maybe challenge your teammates too. And I think that helped us kind of come together, because we were kind of against Coach Floyd. I hate, not that we didn't like him, but it was kind of us against him in practice. So that kind of helped us kind of pull together.
I think I brought this up when I spoke with Clay Edwards, but I always loved it when Floyd, in a Big Eight game, Saturday afternoon at Hilton, Cyclones are on a run, other team calls timeout, and Floyd would just leave you guys out there, and the crowd would just go nuts. What was that like as a player when he would do that?
Well, the first time felt a little weird. Thought we did something wrong. But after that first time, it was nice. It was basically telling the other team, coaches, fans, players, that we don't have anything to talk about. We're already doing what we need to do. Just keep doing it. And so, yeah, kind of strategic, but useful.
How big of an advantage is Hilton Coliseum?
It's amazing. I know everybody that's ever been there, been a part of it, will say the same thing. It's something special enough that I'll never forget how special it is. It's the fans. It's the understanding of the game. You know, they know when to cheer, how to cheer. They know when to scream. You know, it's not something that happens everywhere.
When you dream of yourself in the Cardinal and gold, do you think of yourself wearing the uniforms for the first 2 years or then the last 2 years of your career? Because, this was a big overhaul in the color scheme. We started putting navy blue in the uniforms. Cy looked totally different. Which uniform scheme did you like better?
Wow. Tough question.
Because you played your best basketball in, the navy blue updated Cy uniforms. But I think, in my opinion, the timeless ones were, Floyd's first year and Orr's last year that you played in.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't know, both of them are special. It's tough to definitely pick one. I did like the gold when we went to the alternate gold jerseys. I know some people didn't like them, but I did kind of like them.
Well, you beat Kansas in the gold.
Yeah. Well, of course, then it's got to be the gold ones. But I think both of them were nice. Being a Big 8 kind of guy, I would say the older ones, ones that I would lean towards probably.
Isn't it wild to look back at some of those videos? I was watching some of those YouTube videos, and most of the full games you can find online now, which is incredible. But those KU teams had 7 or 8 NBA guys on them all at one time. You had Paul Pierce and Scott Pollard and Jock Vaughn. I mean, it's just, the list went on and on. Rafe LaFrance. Those teams were so good. You just don't see college teams with that type of talent and depth nowadays. Is it wild for you to go back and watch those games and just kind of pinch yourself and look at some of the talent that was on the floor?
Oh, definitely. And I keep getting, different kids and things that ask me about the games. And obviously the first question is, well, why didn't you go play? You played against all these guys. But I said, it's not that easy. But definitely, you just Paul Pierce, Chauncey Billups at Colorado, Tyronn Lue at Nebraska. You just go down the list of the people that I had a chance to compete against. And it's, definitely something that I have to pinch myself. You're right.
You mentioned Sutherland earlier that you kind of had his number a little bit. Was there another guy that either had your number or you had theirs that you played against in the Big 8 or Big 12?
Well, Jock Vaughn and I, we had our battles, so we kind of went back and forth a little bit. Tyronn Lue was probably by far the toughest to guard. I don't know. Not really, because for the most part, we were able to in my 4 years beat every team in the Big 8. I don't know.
What made Lue tough to guard? Was it the fact that he was on Nebraska and he just had the green light all the time, so you could never relax on him?
Well, you say Nebraska, but they were really good. They had Eric Strickland that went on, got drafted by the Mavericks. Jerron Boone, Mikey Moore, they won. I think they won the NIT the 1 year. And so they had a bunch of guys. He was just so fast with the ball. He was faster dribbling the ball than most people were just sprinting without a ball. That made him tough. And then later on in his career, he started shooting it better. Then he became really kind of unstoppable.
So March 10th, 1996, you guys are in the Big 8 championship game, the last Big 8 basketball game ever played. Kenny Pratt kicks it out to you with 42 seconds left. I believe you are scoreless at this point in the game, and you knock down the biggest three maybe in Iowa State history, at least as a kid watching that game. I felt like that was the biggest three in Iowa State history because it won us the first, listen to me, I'm saying us, it won Iowa State the first ever conference championship tournament title at that point. What's your memory, or when you think back on that shot, what do you think about in that play?
Well, I think back to the timeout, and we're drawing up the play. It's a play that we've ran before. We'd actually, I think, even tried to run it in the game earlier. But in the timeout, and somebody that wants everything on his shoulders, give me the ball. I'll take the heat if I miss it. I'll take the praise if I make it, and Kenny Pratt. And we were good friends. But for him, right after Coach Floyd said, if you're doubled, kick it right here to Holloway. And Kenny's looked at me and said, you're get ready, kind of. And basically is showing that he had confidence in me being able to knock it down, because he could have taken that, against the double team and just turned around and thrown up one of his crazy shots that he's always done. But for him to basically tell me, in the timeout, be ready, that gave me the confidence.
You mentioned it briefly earlier that you won, I think, 4 high school state championships. So you're used to big time games, big time moments, but you didn't shoot a lot, and just to not put up a lot of shots in that game and to be ready for that shot. Was there any jitters? Was there any thought of skipping it to somewhere else?
No, I didn't have time to think, which probably helped.
Yeah.
Definitely something that I'm glad I was able to do, even in high school at a young age, was to block out the crowd and block out the noise, and kind of having a ultra focus on what I'm supposed to be doing on the floor. That really helped me. But looking back, I think I lost out on some of those experiences of Hilton, of Allen Fieldhouse, of all these places that we played at. I don't think I was able to just look back and enjoy it because I was in the moment so much.
It's kind of wild to look at Iowa State basketball now, because I believe I think we're on our 7th head coach since Johnny Orr, which is wild because that doesn't seem like it was all that long ago. I mean, it was 25 years ago or so, a little over 25 years ago that Johnny Orr retired. And I believe Otzelberger is the 7th head coach since then. And there's obviously been some tremendous highs with Hoiberg, and with Prohm had some good years as well. But where do you think Iowa State basketball fits into the national landscape? Because obviously I'm biased. I grew up 60 miles away from Hilton. I grew up an Iowa State fan, idolizing, those teams that you were on. But where do you think Iowa State fits in the national landscape?
Well, I think that there's been some teams that have helped put us back on the map. I think, different sportscasters and announcers have helped bring us back to, kind of out of the shadows a little bit.
Fran Fraschilla?
Yeah.
He loves Iowa State.
He does. And I actually stopped and talked to him after one of the games. I can't remember. It was quite a few years ago, but at Wallabies, he was there eating, and I stopped and talked to him. But
he brought up Wallabies the other night in that Memphis game.
Did he? Yeah, he likes that. He said he liked that place. But I think people know about Iowa State now. When I played and we went to the tournament, even we played Cincinnati, and we were, a team that shouldn't have even been in the game. That's how people thought, even across the country. And a lot of people didn't know who Iowa State was. But I think everybody across all the states probably have some idea who Iowa State is now.
Yeah, you bring up that Cincinnati game, and Cincinnati at one point that season was ranked number 1, and they had Kenyon Martin and Bob Huggins, and those were just some unbelievably tough teams, and you guys beat them in a great March Madness game. Is that the game that you go back to when you're thinking about your career?
Well, I'd rather go to that one than the last one.
Than the next one? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not always. That one had some weird endings to it.
Yeah.
Actually, the ball after Flint, after he shot it from almost half court, it bounced straight off the backboard all the way right to me at half court. And I grabbed the ball, and I'm holding the ball because the refs took off. I'm holding the ball. Everybody's going nuts. We're celebrating. I'm still holding the ball. And I looked at one of the assistant coaches like, what do you want me to do with this? Like, everybody left. He said, just keep it. And I still have that basketball.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is pretty neat.
The Cameron Dollar game, the next one. Is that the one you still have nightmares about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's one we talk about even as a group that we all have nightmares about. And I didn't watch it, I don't think, for probably close to 5 years that I was able to actually sit down and watch. And I don't even know if I watched the end of it for even a little bit longer than that. But yeah, it's a tough one to go out on.
How are those Iowa State alumni reunions? I know they started doing that within the last 5 years here, and it seems like those have been a pretty big hit. Is that a good time to get together and tell stories? And I guess what stories are told there? Are they more practice stories? Are they games? Are they, hanging out at the bar stories? What type of stuff is shared?
All of the above. Definitely. Yeah, what I really enjoy is getting in a little bit of every era and having a chance to talk to different guys like Lefty Moore.
Oh, yeah.
I love sitting with those guys and listen to their stories. And then they vice versa. Like, they ask me questions about stuff that we did and things that we had going on. And it's something that, looking back, like I wish we would have had when I was in college. And I know that even these young guys, every year we go up there and just like we were when we were young kids, don't want to listen to the old guys all the time.
Right.
But I think later on, 10, 15 years down the road, they'll really understand how much, that can affect and really make you feel good about being an Iowa Stater.
Well, the way we end every episode of the Moonlight Graham Show, JC, is with the People's Company sponsored 5 big questions. So the first question is, who is your all-time favorite teammate?
Yeah. Well, you want me to get in trouble, huh?
Well, yeah. You're the point guard here. So, distribute to your favorite guy.
Oh, man. Favorite teammate?
Just favorite teammate.
Oh, man. My best friends were walk-ons. And
like
so, and not that I didn't get along with everybody else, but Hakeem Abdel-Khalik and Saul Harris were walk-ons for us. And they did, the job that nobody, comes to a school to do, is to practice and never play. So, I mean, those guys probably don't even realize how much I respect what they were able to do and still be friends with us,
Yeah, and maybe this was because I was a Psycho fan when I was a kid, but it doesn't seem like those type of guys are around as much anymore with the transfer portal the way it is. And like guys like Joe Moderman and Hakeem Abdul-Khalik and guys like that just were on the team for 4 years. You don't see that as much. At least that's my perception.
Yeah, I probably should have mentioned Joe too. So I lived with Joe in the dorms my freshman year, and then we also lived in a house together. So we're definitely really good friends also, and still are really good friends.
Who was your least favorite coach to play against?
Oh, play against. Oh, probably Roy Williams. I don't just, I mean, a lot of things. Nothing against him, but he was a coach at KU. So that's the reason.
What was your favorite road trip?
Oh man, I didn't like to fly. I really didn't. Motion sickness, really bad, but probably, probably go. I say this, probably going to Colorado, going to Boulder, just because the part I liked is we would get meal money, and we always ate at a pretty fancy hotel restaurant when we were out there.
So I know you've spent a lot of time on the road coaching since then, right? Coaching JUCO. What's your favorite spot to stop when you're on the road, just on a road trip, driving by yourself or coaching with a team? Like, is there a gas station or a fast food place that you just can't miss?
Pretty much any gas station, any convenience store. My wife kind of gets mad at me because I can spend $20-$30 at a convenience store every time I go there.
What's the snack? Like
I'm getting seeds. I'm getting jerky. I'm getting any kind of candy, mostly candy, not so much chocolate. And then I'm getting energy drinks to tea, just all kinds. Like, I get a lot of stuff.
You're just a good consumer.
Yeah. They see me coming.
Outside of Ames, what's your favorite town in Iowa?
Oh man. Okoboji, probably.
Ooh, nice.
Also one of our managers during the time was from there, John Adams. So yeah, that was fun up there.
Is there a game outside of the Cameron Dollar game that still nags at you?
Not specifically, but the fact that we never won in my 4 years, we never won in Stillwater and we never won in Lawrence. That probably is more nagging than just a certain game.
What was up with like big white guys with flat tops in that era? Like you had Greg Ostertag, Bryant Reeves, Lauren Meyer had kind of a flat top. That was like a thing. Clay Edwards, flat top.
Yeah, it was. The flat top was in. That's what I had in high school.
Was it coming off of Hoosiers where like guys were like, oh, that's probably what I should look like?
Yeah, maybe that might have been why. I'm not sure.
All right, final question, JC. What's the best advice that you give your kids that you're coaching?
Probably learning how to compete and be competitive. There's a thing that I got from somebody, and it talks about mental toughness and effort. And I think a lot of kids let certain things, the temperature in the gym, the air in the basketball, the fit of your jersey, just all kinds of things that they allow to use as crutches for not doing well is something that I think somebody that's really highly competitive doesn't let happen. And I think that, that was something we tried to talk about at the junior college level. And then through my years as a head coach is just, I was probably over the top competitive. But you have to be that way if you want to, if you really want to have long-standing success.
I got one more question for you. If you're a point guard and you don't have much of a scouting report on the other team, and you just are eyeing the other point guard up from the other side of the court before tip-off, and since you don't have a scouting report, you know that, hey, you can't just come in blind, right? You got to force him to do things that he doesn't want to do. But since you don't have a scouting report, you don't really know what he's good at and what he's not. So you got to probably play to your strength. So back in your day when you're playing, what are you making sure that you're forcing that other point guard to do to make him uncomfortable so you control that, that matchup?
Probably doing as much as I can to not let him catch it, especially where he wants to catch it. I think back then offenses were a little bit different. Like we talked about earlier, teams ran a set or teams ran a continuity offense. And so it really was important for the point guard to get it at certain times. And I think definitely that would be something that I would try to figure out, early on. Where is he wanting to get it? How does that help him set up their offense, and how can I take that away?
Mm-hmm. Were you a pickup full court guy just for the heck of it?
No, rarely. But most of the time that's because of Coach Floyd's system of both guards getting back. We would either be, one all the way to the hole and one at the half court line. And so we didn't have the opportunity to pick up full court very much.
Yeah. Well, Jacy, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it went a little bit long here for you, but I really do appreciate this. I've been a big fan of yours for a lot of years. Loved watching you play. Loved watching the way that you controlled the game on the court as a point guard. So thank you so much for joining us here on the pod, and best of luck this basketball season.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode with the great Jacy Holloway. And no update on the Cosner Quest. You can probably tell in my voice that I'm starting to lose a little bit of steam on it, but I wasn't going to bug Cosner or any of his people during the week of Thanksgiving, and frankly, I didn't want to do a whole lot of work last week anyway. So with the idea that we're thankful for you guys as listeners of the podcast, and also knowing that you guys are doing a lot of Christmas shopping right now, we do have a lot of stickers, and we do have a lot of Moonlight Graham shirts. We've recently ordered another round of Moonlight Graham shirts because we did sell through the last couple of times with our Moonlighter shirts. So with that in mind, knowing you guys are doing some Christmas shopping right now, and I am in the giving mood, here's the deal. If you guys want a Moonlight Graham Show shirt, I haven't figured out exactly. If you guys want a Moonlight Graham Show shirt, send me a DM, send me an email, give me your size, give me the color that you want, and we will send you out a shirt, free will donation, okay? So for the rest of the year, the rest of 2021, there's actually not going to be a price tag on the shirt. If you want to send us $20 for it, if you want to send us $30 for it, if you want to send us $1 for a shirt, we will send you a shirt. You don't even have to send us any money for it. We just want to make sure that all of our listeners have a Moonlight Graham Show shirt out there. So for the rest of the year, our shirts are essentially free, but we'll send them out for free will donation. Instead of doing a Patreon thing here on this podcast or doing, premium content, we really like the model that we have, where we have a great sponsor in People's Company. We've made some good money on the shirts. We're not trying to get rich off this podcast, but we do love that we have a really loyal listener base, and we want all of you to be rocking our gear if you want to. So send me a DM, send me an email with your shirt size, the color and the size of shirt that you want. Obviously, we're going to run out of shirts eventually, so the quicker you do it, the better your chances are. And we'll be giving them to you for a free will donation. You can Venmo me money if you like, or we just would appreciate you guys listening to our podcast, and we want to make sure that we want to thank you for your support by giving you a shirt out. And so we'll be doing that for the rest of this year. Anyway, Thank you guys for listening to the pod. Thankful for you. Thankful for the guys that help me out here on the podcast. Brian Sandvigs, our producer, does everything behind the scenes. Brendan Gargano, the best podcast artwork guy in the business. My brothers, Andy and Neil, do so much helping behind the scenes, booking episodes. And then, of course, the trusty co-host, the secret weapon, the Swiss Army knife of podcasting, Tommy Griffin as well. So thank you all. Have a great week, Moonlighters. Can't wait to see all you guys rocking our shirts over the next couple of months. Thanks and have a great week.
It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. It's a pretty good program, broadcasting to the heartland. Sports stories for the everyman. It's Moonlight Graham, yeah. Please follow us on Instagram. You're loving us on Twitter too. You download every pod we do. It's Moonlight Graham.